Welcome to Hustle and Flow with Heather Hubbard, episode 106. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard, and I was a litigator, partner, and practice group leader at an AmLaw 200 firm. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you embrace your ambition without selling your soul? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be talking about finances and cash flow, and this may seem relevant only for the solos or those running businesses, but there is so much wisdom in this episode and in this interview. So if you are a salaried employee or you are a partner in BigLaw and you don't really have to worry with cash flow too much, I still want you to listen because you're going to see how it too can change your life and give you more opportunities and really just empower you to make decisions from a place of knowing you can do things as opposed to being restricted or held back by those golden handcuffs. All right. So before we begin, I want to introduce you to Bonnie. So as you know, we are doing small clips, small interviews, messages to celebrate 100 episodes of the Hustle and Flow podcast. So today, Bonnie is sharing her favorite episode.
Hi, this is Bonnie from Philadelphia. I'm calling to let you know that episode number 94 came to me at just the right time. That was your episode on going solo, and I am now 1 week in to my solo law practice. It came to me at the absolute right time in my life and really gave me the push to go ahead and pursue that dream. And so far, 5 days in, I can say it has been the best decision of my life. So thank you, and I look forward to listening to the next 100.
Bonnie, I am so glad that you have been enjoying the podcast and that episode made such a difference for you. Congratulations on your new law firm. That is so awesome. I hope you are still enjoying it just as much and that it is rewarding in every single way. Thanks again for listening. Okay, so let's get to our interview today. Today's guest is Amber Duggar. She spent 15 years in corporate finance before she left and started her own company, Profit for Keeps, which is a system developed for service-based businesses to end the stress and anxiety around numbers. So her sweet spot is combining personal finance with business cash flow to help you calculate revenue goals that actually make sense and to systematize the money coming in and out so that you can pay yourself and make better short-term and long-term decisions around money. It is a system that I have been using myself. It has been a complete game changer. So I'm really excited to have Amber here on the show with us today. So welcome, Amber, to the Hustle and Flow podcast.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. So I have to share with everyone that we are actually in the same mastermind. I'm always telling my listeners that masterminds are so powerful. And this is how I met Amber. We are in the same mastermind this year. And miss seeing you in Vegas, but hopefully you will be there in San Diego.
Yes, I sure hope to. I'll be flying straight from Toronto to San Diego.
So let's start with what you're doing. Just give us a little bit of background as to how you got where you are and what you're doing now with Profit for Keeps.
Sure. So I started out in the entrepreneurial world back in 2014, and I had just experienced a pretty severe bicycle accident. And I had this time on my hands where I was recovering. And I just had a big epiphany at that time, knowing that I just didn't want to spend any more time in a cubicle doing corporate finance. It was sucking my soul dry. And this accident was really a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to really take a step back and assess, what can I do? Where can I go from here that will be different? And it really boiled down to a pretty lucrative job offer with the government or me going out on my own. So I declined the offer and went out on my own. And I had just spent a year going through a certification to become a health coach through IIN. And I moved to Bali very shortly after that because I needed a change of pace. Mm-hmm. And I was seeing clients virtually and living a pretty awesome life in Bali, and just continued to be asked over and over about cash flow and money in my system, because I had developed my own just from the background of having a finance degree and working in corporate finance. And when I went through my health coaching certification, there was absolutely nothing on what to do when money came in. And that was really the struggle I had was, well, what do I do with this money? I know I need to pay some taxes. I know that I have expenses I need to manage, and I also want to pay myself. And even with a degree in finance and a background for 15 years, I still wasn't really sure what the best route was. And I didn't really see anything out there laying it out for me. So I had been using a budgeting software for many years called You Need a Budget. And I just started using that for my cash flow system. Long story short, I was continued to be asked to do talks and go to retreats talking about money and the mindset behind money and the relationship with money. And that's when I realized, I thought I never wanted to touch finance again with a 10-foot pole, but I can do it differently. And it doesn't have to be sterile and gray and corporate and overly complicated for no reason. And I recognized that there were so many people out there that had all of these feelings around money and this relationship around money, but we didn't have a place to talk about it. And so we started doing these money dates where we would get together on Fridays and we'd bring kombucha or wine or green tea, whatever it was. And we would just sit in a safe space and talk about money. And it was so healing to see different people in different stages of the relationship with money sharing openly and recognizing they weren't alone. And it was at that point in time that I pivoted into money coaching. And over the course of the next couple of years, I came across the book Profit First. And for those of you who haven't heard of Profit First, it's basically a really simple and awesome way to allocate money so that you can always make sure you have enough money for profit. So you're paying your business first, you have money to pay yourself, you have money to pay taxes, and you have enough money for business expenses. And when I came across that, I said, oh my gosh, this is so great, but I'm not going to use the bank accounts. I want to use my envelope software. And from there, the story just continues on to developing this program that really works well for service-based entrepreneurs that are looking to figure out how to regularly pay themselves, how to have enough money for business expenses, feel in control and clear about their money, and have a revenue goal that actually makes sense. Because everyone that is in business went into business because we want some type of freedom or autonomy. And the resource that we have, money, allows us to do that. So it's just getting clear on how to use it efficiently and feel relaxed about it, and it not be a constant state of, anxiety, because it really is just a resource.
I am so glad that you shared that you have a finance degree. You had been doing 15 years of corporate finance, and you were still struggling with the concept of cash flow. Because I have to say, for most attorneys, we're well educated. And I think most of us assume that we should just know how to handle cash and cash flow and how you pay yourself. And what I have found is that most of us don't have training on that. We don't know how to do it. And we feel a bit embarrassed about it. And so we don't talk about it. It's like this hidden secret, but everybody's walking around with it.
Yeah, and that's so common. I mean, there's so many of us that are highly educated and have never been taught this. I kind of look at it similarly to a doctor who's gone through all the doctor training and years of education and very little information on nutrition. It's the same thing. We aren't focusing on the two main things, nutrition and cash flow, that are really the lifeblood of our health, whether it be financially or in our body. Mm-hmm. So I'm so excited that we're getting into a point where people are more open to talking about it and listening about it and taking action, because it is definitely something that once you believe, I will be on track. I will be good with money. I am good with money because I truly believe that everyone is good with money. They just haven't found a system that works or been shown a system that works for them. Then our thoughts change the way we feel, it changes the way that we act, and then our result is we're no longer stressed about money.
And I'm going to just throw this in here that for those that are listening, if you don't have your own law firm, right? So let's say you're not a solo, let's say you're not a small law firm, let's say you are a corporate attorney, right? You're in-house or you are in BigLaw. I still see this as an issue. I see so many attorneys that have a great salary, and yet they make decisions out of fear around money. So they won't quit their job. They won't change their job. They don't, in many ways, like they're not actually saving for their retirement. And I'll share in a little bit, but having gone through Amber's stuff, to me, it's not just even if you own a business, it's knowing that money is a resource and understanding what's coming in and what you can use it for. So again, if you are on a salary, but you want freedom and autonomy, whether it's in that job or potentially another later on, all of this is still going to be applicable and relate to you. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Amber.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's so important that, but regardless if you have a business or not, having clarity around the money that comes into your household is essential, because whether you have a business that's supplying that money or you're part of an overall organization that's providing you a salary, it's still money coming in that if you spend more of it than what's coming in, you're going to have a problem. Whether you're getting $1 million a month or $10,000 a month, it's going to be something that you want to have control over, because without having that clarity in the household side, then whether you have a business or not, you're going to always feel that state of panic. Because I have, from my experience, people that are on salary still have the same concerns of, what if I get laid off? Or what if the contract ends? Or what if, they furlough everyone? There's all sorts of other questions outside of whether or not the business is providing the revenue. So absolutely.
Well, and I also think that, what you just said, the more money you make, it doesn't solve your money problems, which, I see this, I've experienced myself. I've seen it with clients. It's as if no matter how much money you're making, if you don't have a good sense of the cash flow and it's like your expenses just keep going up, right? So it's like the more money you make, you just spend more money on your kids, private schools or their summer camps or this and that. And at the end of the day, it's like, how is it that I make this much money, but yet I still don't have the extra that I thought would be there, which I think is what you would call the profit piece.
Yeah.
How do we get into that situation?
Well, the thing is, I actually think that, people that have professions such as lawyers and doctors, they actually are even at a further disadvantage in some ways, because there is this perception that, they make a lot of money, we can charge them more. And so sometimes the expenses can be inflated just because of that. Other ways is just the fact that we think when we know we're making a certain salary or we know we're making a certain amount of revenue, there can be this perception of, when it's a large number, $1,000 isn't going to matter, or $2,000 here isn't going to matter. But as we all know, when we add all those numbers up, it can sometimes be a little bit like, whoa, that's a lot more money than I thought it was going to be. So it's one of those things where looking at even a $20 expense and asking yourself, am I using this? Do I prioritize this service? And if not, cut it out, because that is something that over time adds up and it's just leaking. It's leaking money out. It's like throwing away $20 every month. And looking at what it is that you actually use your money for and being more clear about it allows you to be much more intentional. And I think it allows you to really look at what's important to you. Is it important to experience this right now? Or is this because I just want to not feel something? Is this because I just don't want to have to do something? And having more clarity around that allows you to really make those decisions while taking the emotion out of it.
That is such a good point. And I see this so much in BigLaw, which is you make a ton of money, but you spend a ton of money because you need to numb out and not have those feelings. So that is such a great point. So I want to talk about cash flow a little bit, because it's something that I have honestly struggled with in my business. So, I started my business in around November 2014. And I've always been focused on revenue, not profit. And I very much have had the mindset of I'm going to keep investing in the business. Like I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to let it keep growing. So I wasn't as focused on paying myself. But that turns into a slippery slope. And so then when I got to the point where I was like, I really need to focus on profit and I really want to start paying myself, that I noticed there was this huge cash flow issue. Some months there would be a ton of cash, and then other months it would be low on cash. And it was just this feeling of never really knowing where I could invest, when I could pay myself. And it's just this constant roller coaster. And I actually so I read Profit First, got the concept, tried to implement it, and just couldn't make it work because I always had money that I had to pay out. And so I couldn't get in front of it. Hired a CFO to even create a cash flow chart for me. And it was so complicated. It did not help me at all. And then I was beating myself up for either investing in something that wasn't useful or just not being smart enough to understand it. And then in our mastermind, you did a mini workshop for us. I mean, it was super short, but you also did like a webinar with your calculators. And it was also, it's hard work, right? Because a lot of it's actually emotional, but it was so easy to understand. And I was like, wait a minute, why has everybody been overcomplicating this? You just made it so easy to understand. And I don't know, like in my mind, you made it so easy. I don't know if you can kind of like do a short overview on, I get that there's a lot that goes into it, but just kind of giving that high level overview of how it's not complicated and how we can start looking at cash flow in a different way.
Yes, absolutely. First off, I just want to say that if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yes, I have always felt like this is just really complicated and I don't really understand why, trust me, there's a reason for that and you're not alone, because there's this industry that has basically tried to make it as complicated as possible so they can get away with as much as possible. Because if you go back 50 years, even 100 years, there weren't any businesses that weren't profitable, right? Because if you didn't have money, you went out of business. And everything was cash. So we had tangible dollars that we could organize. So people had ways to organize their cash back then. They used envelopes, they used folders, they did something that made it very clear. This is the money that comes in. Okay, I need to make sure I have money to pay my employees so they don't raid me. I need to make sure that I can pay the tax man so that when he knocks on the door, he doesn't take me to jail. These things were real life urgent problems, right? Urgent because it was right then, right there, and they had the money. Then when we moved into electronic money, essentially having everything online or through bank statements and using, first it was checks and then debit cards and then credit cards, it's a lot easier to remove yourself from the actual tangible exchange of money. So the first component is that there's a psychological exchange. When you pay cash for something and you receive something back, you know that you have let go of something of value and you have received something of value. And it feels very aligned. And when you start paying with a credit card, it no longer is this even exchange because you don't see the money leaving your hands. Instead, you hand over the card, you receive the goods, and then you receive back the card. And it's almost like a reward to your brain because you've now received two things back and you haven't really had to give them any cash. And now that we have the tap to pay and the Apple watches and things like that, it's like we have this magic wand and we don't even have to give anything and then we get stuff for free. Mm-hmm. Put that in quotes, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so the psychological shift has been devastating for our economy because what's happening is we don't see that money going in and out. And so we have a solution. So not all is lost, but it's just getting back to looking at the actual value of a dollar, whether you have $10,000 in your bank account or 100, although it feels like a dollar is worth a lot more when you only have $100 in your bank account versus if you have 10,000. So money is really simple. And because people have made it so complicated, just taking it back to, all right, if you make a certain amount of money, number one rule is you don't want to spend more than that amount. And it sounds like super simple, but it is. It's like the number one rule. Don't spend as much as you make. And the easiest way to make sure you don't spend as much as you make is by maintaining awareness of where that money's going. And a lot of times people get hung up on, well, I think I get ahead and then I get this really big bill that I forgot that it's an annual bill or it's a semi-annual bill. So having a method where you can calculate all of your expenses regardless of when they go in and out can then help you maintain awareness of what your actual costs are every month. Because a lot of us think our actual costs are just our monthly costs that we do every month, and then we forget about those annual expenses. So the second thing you can do is just list out all of your expenses and list out your annual expenses and sum up your annual expenses and then divide that by 12 and add that to your number of your monthly expenses that you already have in your head. And then you can start putting aside that extra amount every month so then you're not feeling like you're always behind the eight ball.
One of the big things for me, and we can talk about kind of, so, there's the whole Dave Ramsey cash envelope thing. I'm not going to use cash because I prefer to get all of the points. It's like free money to me, and the cash back. But you do the digital, which I love so much more. But what was like so huge for me was this concept that, yes, I have like these annual things, right? Like, so I have these big things that come up. So like I do my live event in November, and that takes a ton of cash or digital, whatever we want to say. It takes a ton of money to actually put that event on. Well, like I start selling it in April. And so like last April, I pre-sold it, but the way that my business runs, it's just always, well, when a bill comes up, it'll come up. And when cash comes in, it comes in. And I wasn't really looking at it through the filter of you really have to put things in categories and think it through that way, as opposed to just the cash coming in and out every month. And so, for example, this April, I'm already doing this with a lot of things, but this April, when the tickets go on sale, the cash that comes in that I know needs, I'm not going to have a bill until December, right? I'm not going to have a bill until December 2019, but that cash, I know I'm going to need it. When I get it in April, it's going to go into this envelope on the side that does not get used, right? Like that has to be there for when the bill comes in December. Otherwise, I don't have clarity around when things are coming in and out. And that was huge for me.
Yeah. And that's such an awesome thing because come December, you're going to feel so good. It's not going to be stressful that you have these expenses because you've been preparing for them.
Can you explain the envelope system a bit for those that aren't even familiar with the concept and how you encourage us to do it digitally?
Sure. So think about all of your money, because we usually have money in several different bank accounts. So if you're going to use an envelope system and you would first just take all of your money out of your accounts. And if we were doing this together, we could just sit down at your dining room table and we'd see a big pile of cash. And then the next thing we would do is just ask, okay, because we all have this in our head. We have an idea of when certain things are due, and we make sure that we have money in the account to make sure that they're covered and that the withdrawal clears. So I would ask, okay, what are the next things that you have to pay for? What are the next things that you're going to pay for with this money right now? And so let's say mortgage. So we pull out a certain amount of money and put it in an envelope and with a big black permanent marker, write mortgage and put it to the side. And then we just keep doing that until we have no money left. And what that does for you is it sets intention and purpose, or it gives every dollar a job, as YNAB would say, to all of your money. So that if you do decide to spend some money on something that you don't have money in a category for, in an envelope for, you then have to make a decision. And you have to look at the current envelopes and see, well, where could I move money into this envelope to cover this thing that I really want to do, and I can still be on track and have money for all the other things that I know I need to pay for. And so it gives you a much clearer picture of what your money's doing. So you're not just looking at a number in your bank balance and saying, oh, it's only $20, no problem. But if all of your money has been already pre-allocated into envelopes and you have a $20 thing come up, you then want to make a decision, and there's an opportunity cost for spending that $20 elsewhere. So that in a nutshell is an envelope system. We now have electronic ways of doing that. You Need a Budget is the one that I love. Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey is another one. And they just connect to the bank accounts, and then it's like an organizational dashboard for your cash. So you have your bank account set up. It shows how much money you have total, and then you can put money into each line, and it's almost like mini savings accounts. And so as people start using this software, they recognize, you know what, it's actually simpler just to have one checking account. And they usually consolidate to one checking account because they can allocate money for savings. They can allocate money for future expenses. And then they're no longer looking at their bank balance because they know, since they're using the software, that they have money for the different expenses that they've already thought about. And by using a system like this, you also just get more clear of what's going in and out of your accounts every day. So a lot of times people save a lot of money just by starting to use a system like this because they see, oh, wait a second, why is Comcast charging me $20 more this month? And then, oh, they raise their rates. And if I call, I can get it negotiated back down. And so these little things that you notice because you're seeing where your cash is going.
Because I was always looking at the bank account. I mean, that's the truth. I was looking at the balance of the bank account every month to give me a sense of, what I had, but it's not even close to accurate. And so being able to have like this dashboard, right, where it's not super complicated, but you just have, it's clear like what the money's being held for or used for. It just makes so much more sense as to what you actually have. And I have found that I was probably I think we all have areas where we just blow money, right? And it's more the emotional numbing. But then we realize, well, wait, if I'm spending money on this and it means I then don't have it for this, right? Whether it's retirement or the ability to leave my firm if I want to, or the ability to hire another staff member, it just makes you consider it in a new light. And it's less about just this reactive numbing out and blowing money. And it's more about being intentional and saying, well, what do I really want? It gives you more control. I feel more empowered.
Yes, that's absolutely what it does. And, sometimes my clients have joked around and they say they use a new hashtag called conscious overspending. And, and I love that because, there are some times when you do really just want to do something, but when okay, this is happening, I am going to overspend here, I am going to take it from this area, and I'm okay with that, you release any sort of guilt or shame around the spend because you know what you're doing and you're in control of what you're doing. Yeah. And so being on a budget doesn't mean you're restricted and you're never going to have a life and you're going to basically sit home every Friday night. It's not like that. It's more just that you actually get more freedom out of it because you can make conscious decisions that do feel empowering and that do allow you to really just enjoy the moment of what you're doing versus that underlying guilt that a lot of us experience when we spend money.
Yes. Yes. And for me, I had to make it work. I had to basically do a spending freeze for 3 months, which really annoyed me because I like investing in my business. But now I have a totally different mindset. And yeah, there are times when I want to spend money on something, but when I compare it to what the trade-off is, right? Where I can't spend money in other places, it's oh, it's not that I can't spend the money. It's that I'm choosing not to because I understand I'm going to spend it in this place. Or if I do, it's exactly what you're saying. If I do say, no, I'm going to spend more on this, it's just that I'm making that decision as opposed to feeling out of control.
Yes. And I love, love, love that you mentioned that you did a spending freeze for 3 months. And essentially what you did there was you just reset the clock on the age of your money. And by doing that, you're still spending the same or relatively the same after the fact, but you're no longer spending tomorrow's revenue. Instead, you're spending 3 months ago's revenue, right? Because it's now no longer this constant, okay, when is the money going to come in so I can cover these things? It gives you this relief.
That was the issue with Profit First. I mean, it made sense to me conceptually, but I had to get in front of it. So I've never heard it said in that way, but now that makes perfect sense, Amber. That's brilliant.
I'd love to quickly explain the Profit First and also how the envelope system applies to that. Do you think that would be helpful?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So what I've found with service-based businesses, especially ones that, we really have control over the amount of clients that we want to see and what rates we want to charge. And if we're feeling a little bit like either behind the eight ball or there just doesn't seem to ever be any money left over, there's a few things that you can look at. The first thing is you want to look at how much money do I actually need to make to cover how much I want to live, like how much I want to pay myself each month, how much my business investments are, what my tax liabilities are going to be, and then of course have some money left over for profit, which is the savings for your business. And reverse engineering profit first and coming up with that revenue goal number first then gives you this great power because you now have this knowledge of, okay, I need to hit this amount per month. And this amount per month with my rates and the number of clients I have, I see I'm falling short by this amount. Or you may see that you're almost hitting that number. And then looking at, okay, well, what do I need to do to hit this number or to exceed this number? And you can just do some really quick adjustments in price or take on an extra client. And after you do that, you get profit first percentages so that overall number that you have. So let's say that your revenue goal is $20,000. And I have a calculator. So if you want to share that with your listeners, they can definitely download it. So in this calculator, you just put in how much you want to pay yourself each month, what your business investments are each month, the amount of tax you want to set aside, and the amount of profit you want to make. And then it gives you profit first percentages that you can then allocate any deposit that comes in. So if your goal is 20,000 and your percentages, let's just say, are 5% profit, 20% taxes, 50% owner's pay, and then whatever the remaining is, I think 25% for business expenses. Then every time you get money that comes in, you're going to separate out your money. So let's say you have $1,000 come in, 5% of that's going to go to profit. 50% of that's going to go to owner's pay, 25% is going to go to business expenses, and 20% is going to go to taxes. And so then you have a plan. Every time you get money in, you know you're going to separate it out into 4 piles. Whether you use 4 bank accounts or you decide to use a digital software, you just want to make sure that you're separating it out every time you have money come in. And then really honor that and say, okay, this money, whatever's in this account, is owner's pay. I can pay myself whatever's in this account. With business expenses, I can use this for business expenses. Profit, you just leave it there for savings for now. And then the rest of it is going towards taxes. And that way you have money for taxes. This very simple system of looking at your overall revenue goal and then seeing if you're hitting it will allow you to answer that question, am I spending more money than I'm making, very easily. And you can make some quick tweaks that will just completely change the way you feel about your money situation, because you can now be confident that you now know why you may feel like you don't have any money left over, and you have an action plan on what you want to do about it.
Yes, guys, I love this. We're going to put the calculator in the show notes. So on iTunes, you can just, in the details, you'll have a link, or you can go to the actual website, which will be hustleandflowpodcast.com/106. But I also want to tell you, I have taken Amber's Profit for Keeps online course, and it really is life-changing. Now, it requires some work, and I hate to tell you this, Amber, we want to pull our hair out, but which you probably already know that, because we don't want to look at this stuff. And it is tedious, but it gives you so much power and control and just have more peace. So if you are in any way either struggling with the cash flow concept, struggling with paying yourself consistently, if you have any of those issues, I highly encourage you, one, do the calculator, but I highly encourage you to actually look at her course, Profit for Keeps, because it really is a game changer.
And it is one of those things that once you learn it and once you learn how to ride a bike, it becomes second nature. So it's something that you can use for many years to come. And it's something that will just give you that peace of mind because you do know where the money's going.
Yes, absolutely. And like I said earlier, even if you've got a salary, this is worth it, so that, like, if you want to leave that job one day, or if you want to retire early, if you want to have that flexibility in making your own decisions and not have those golden handcuffs, this is just as important for you as it is for someone that is running their own business.
For those of you that are thinking of jumping into the entrepreneurial world or doing your own solo practice, this gives you a foundation that is so special, because you can say, yes, I know how much my business is going to run and I know how much I need to make. And that in itself allows you to be on this solid foundation where you're not thinking constantly about, will I run out of money? Because you're going to be clear about it. So I just wish any business that's about to start goes through this process, because it just gives you so much peace of mind.
Yes, absolutely. So is it profitforkeeps.com or is it amberduggar.com?
It's amberduggar.com/profit-for-keeps.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Amber, as always, it has been amazing. I am so glad that you decided to come back into the finance part of the world, because you are helping so many people. You have helped me. And I'm just so appreciative that you were willing to come on and share this with all of my listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Heather. It's a true honor, and I really appreciate it. And I am hoping that all of you listening feel a little bit more empowered about your money and know that I truly do believe that you are good with money.
Yes. All right, guys, we'll talk next week.
Bye.
I am super excited to announce that the Life and Law Planner is officially here. It is more than just a calendar. It is a full planning system. If you want to take back your days, your weeks, your months, and your year, order your planner now. It will completely change your life and help you accomplish your biggest goals. There's only a limited quantity available, so go to lifeandlawplanner.com and order yours today.